The Hornet's main purpose is to perform strike missions. To carry out these missions, the aircraft can carry a very large and diverse collection of ordnance. General purpose and laser-guided iron bombs, AGM-62 Walleye glide bombs, AGM-65E Mavericks, CBU-59B Rockeye cluster bombs, BLU-107B Durandal anti-runway bombs, HARM high-speed anti-radiation missiles, and even the B-57 tactical thermonuclear device are all part of the Hornet's inventory for air-to-ground missions. To deliver this collection of ordnance, you'll be learning tactics and techniques for strafing, bombing, and the standoff employment of the Walleye, Maverick, and HARM. Your technique will develop as you fly more missions. Take into account the construction of the characteristics of the target and the surrounding enemy defenses as you choose your method for attack. New HUD symbology is introduced in the topics to follow. Two of the new symbols are the pull-up Q and breakaway X. If any air-to-ground bombs or missiles are selected, the pull-up Q is displayed on the HUD. The distance between the pull-up Q and the velocity vector is your indicator for ground avoidance. If the two symbols intersect, the breakaway X is displayed on the HUD. At this point, immediately initiate at least a 4G pull-up and hold through to pull out to avoid the terrain. The ground comes up fast sometimes, so keep your head in the game. Complete the following sections and you'll have the knowledge to properly employ weapons from the Hornet in almost all situations. The key then will be practice, enabling you to execute the tactic and destroy the target. Before getting into the cockpit for your mission, configure your aircraft's loadout. Select your mission, then click on the pre-flight button. The Hornet is not able to carry every weapon on every station. Having the appropriate weapon can be critical to the success of your mission. Select the default loadouts or hand-pick the weapons best suited to your mission. You begin your mission in the cockpit. The station loadout is displayed on the left DDI. Pressing the S key displays your stores, which are now in a safe mode. Press the right bracket key to display your air-to-ground weapons and arm them for delivery. Stores are identified by symbols and are labeled, including the number remaining. To cycle through your air-to-ground weapons, also use the right bracket key. The currently selected weapon is boxed and highlighted. The number in the upper center of the display is the number of cannon rounds remaining. Displayed in the upper left corner is your remaining rounds of chaff bundles and flares. Attacking targets using your aircraft's cannon is called strafing. Use strafing against multiple soft targets such as jeeps, small tanks, and armored personnel carriers in a fairly benign threat environment. The run-in can be made at high or low altitude. Locate the target in the appropriate air-to-ground radar mode. Cycle through your air-to-ground weapons in the left DDI using the right bracket key. Select the gun. The HUD will display your selected weapon and the number of rounds remaining. With gun selected, the gun reticle also appears in the HUD. Use Control-A to display radar altitude. At about 5 miles from the target, the aircraft should be level at 3,000 feet and about 350 knots. Once the target is in sight, it will start to drop down on the HUD. Maintain level flight at 3,000 feet. Do not keep the nose on the target. If you do, you'll most likely come in too shallow. As the target disappears behind the nose, wait about 3 seconds, then push the nose over and reduce the throttles. The target should be about 15 degrees nose down at this point. Steady the velocity vector on the base of the target, allowing the gun reticle to settle on the target. As you pass 1,100 feet, squeeze the trigger, allowing the velocity vector and the gun reticle to drift up across the target. Release the trigger when passing 700 to 800 feet and pull back on the stick for approximately a 4G pull-up until the nose is 15 degrees nose high. At 3,000 feet, level out and proceed straight ahead and away from the target. There are a few pitfalls to strafing. Pulling up by 700 feet to ensure safe ground clearance is one of them. Scan your altitude and be off target on time. If you need another pass, take it. Avoiding AAA is another pitfall. Trying to strafe an area blanketed by AAA is basically suicide. Knock out the AAA batteries before strafing your target. We'll cover one of the best methods of dealing with AAA in the section on harm targeting. The mainstay of the Hornet's arsenal is the general purpose bomb. The CCIP, or Continuously Computed Impact Point, is the main targeting method for these free-fall bombs. You can use CCIP in the conventional bomb mode or the auto-release mode. Indication of which mode is displayed in the HUD. Gun firing may also be performed in this mode. CCIP in the conventional bomb mode provides you with a continuous indication of where the bombs are going to impact at any point in time. Select a bomb using the right bracket key. The CCIP mode is now engaged. HUD display indicates the displayed impact line, or DIL, in the CCIP cross. The CCIP cross indicates the point of impact if you were to release the bomb immediately. The CCIP cross may or may not be visible depending on the aircraft's attitude. The displayed impact line provides a steering reference to aid you in maneuvering your aircraft to position the CCIP cross on your target. The basic steps when using CCIP in the conventional bomb mode are proper altitude, nose over to place a CCIP cross on the target, release, pull up and out. Following topics will discuss specific bombing techniques. To toggle between CCIP, conventional, and auto modes, press Shift right bracket. Before a target is designated or pickled, the auto mode HUD symbology displays the air-to-ground designator reticle and the displayed impact line. Maneuver your aircraft to position the reticle on the target and press the trigger, return, or enter key. The target designator diamond, or TD, will appear over the selected point on the ground, and the azimuth steering line, or ASL, will be activated. Pressing the right bracket key will undesignate the target, allowing you to redesignate as needed. HUD readouts include time to go, or TTG, which is the seconds remaining before release, and the distance to target. Maneuver your aircraft to position the velocity vector on the azimuth steering line. As your target nears, the release cue will appear above the velocity vector on the ASL. It will move down the ASL until you reach your release point, at which point the bombs are automatically released. Press the 7 key and follow the bombs as they close on the target. When using CCIP as your method of delivery, strive for quick and accurate target designation. The time your nose points at the target is called tracking time, and since your flight path is very predictable during this phase, you're very vulnerable. Designate quick and pull through the solution to release your bombs. High-altitude level bombing keeps your aircraft out of AAA, but also makes it vulnerable to SAMs and enemy aircraft. As your altitude increases, accuracy decreases, making this method generally more appropriate for large structures. Recommended altitudes are between 18,000 and 24,000 feet. This allows you plenty of room to bunt your nose over and designate the target. Fly toward the target at your chosen ingress altitude. Speed should be about 300 knots. Once you start to track the target visually, adjust your ingress heading to directly overfly the target. When you can clearly make out the target, it's time to designate. Shift right bracket activates CCIP auto or manual mode. Set it to auto mode. Push the nose over, positioning the reticle on the target, and press the trigger, return, or enter key. The target designator diamond will then appear on your aim point. Level your aircraft, keeping the velocity vector on the azimuth steering line, or ASL. Continue tracking ahead until the release cue moves down to the velocity vector and you hear the click of the bomb release. Dive bombing is used when level bombing will not provide the accuracy required or the target is too small to be seen at high altitude. For this example, we'll use a 30-degree dive, which should suit most situations. Ingress for the 30-degree dive is 10,000 feet at 300 knots. Use radar altitude to give proper terrain avoidance during the delivery. Use a waypoint or a map mode stabilized cue or even a radar lock on the target to give you distance to the target. Switch to manual CCIP mode. As you hit 3.5 miles to the target, you'll begin your dive. Roll the aircraft inverted and pull back until your velocity vector is 30 degrees nose down, then roll back upright, continuing 30 degrees nose down. Maneuver your aircraft to position the CCIP cross directly on the target. Release your weapons and smoothly pull back for a 3G pull-up. Try to go no lower than 2,500 feet. Remain aware of the pull-up cue while in your dive. If the breakaway X appears, immediately initiate a 4G pull-up to avoid the ground. The pop is designed to bring your Hornet in under the radar of SAMs and possibly other aircraft. In the target area, you climb and then dive to give a very accurate delivery and avoid AAA. This method is well suited for a high-threat environment, but once you drop your bombs, get back to the deck and egress expeditiously. The choice between the high pop and low pop depends on the ease of locating and designating your target. Ingress at 500 feet AGL. It is important to have a waypoint or radar contact on the target during your attack run, since you'll be popping up at a predetermined range without the target in sight. Speed should be about 400 knots. At 3.5 miles, execute a 4G pull-up to 45 degrees nose high. Hold 45 degrees nose high until you hit 10,000 feet AGL. At this point, roll inverted and execute a 4G pull-up until you're about 45 degrees nose down. Roll upright, designate your target, release weapons, and execute a 2 to 3G pull-up to clear the target. You'll use the high pop for targets having a heavy AAA coverage. Follow the same ingress procedure. At 3.5 miles, execute a 4G pull-up to 70 degrees nose high and apply at least stage 3 afterburner. At 20,000 feet, reverse your turn, reduce back to military power, and pull your nose to 70 degrees nose low. Roll upright and look at the target. The target should be designated no lower than 16,000 feet, and you should fly no lower than 10,000 feet. Designate the target, release, and execute a 2 to 3G pull-up to clear the AAA. There are two types of low-altitude deliveries depending on whether low-drag or high-drag ordnance is selected. High-drag ordnance is used for low-altitude deliveries since target-to-aircraft clearances can be dangerously low. A low-altitude run-in can present severe target acquisition problems. Don't linger or climb to find the target. Refuel and come back if you have to. Vertically significant structures such as dams or power plants are good targets for the low-altitude delivery. Execute a low-altitude, high-drag delivery. Ingress low somewhere around 500 feet AGL. As you close on the target, increase speed to 500 knots. Speed is critical for frag avoidance. At 3 miles from the target, climb to about 1,000 feet AGL, level out, look for the target, and designate. Go no lower than 500 feet AGL before releasing. If you're using low-drag weapons for the low-altitude delivery, you'll need to generate more separation between your aircraft and the bombs. At 3 miles from the target, pull 15 degrees nose up and look for 2,000 feet AGL. At 2,000 feet, reverse your pull and head 5 to 10 degrees nose low, looking for the target. Roll upright and designate it. Hold 10 degrees nose down until you reach 1,000 feet or the bombs are off the aircraft. The loft bombing ingress is the same as the low-altitude run. Speed and early target lineup are key. Only vertically developed targets are viable for loft targeting since you must designate early and at low altitude. Ingress to about 3 miles from your target at 500 feet and 500 knots. Once you've designated the target, pull 30 degrees nose up and wait for the bomb release. Once the bombs release, either pull through the vertical to complete a half loop heading back out the way you came, or slice left or right, turning hard and heading down to the deck to egress the same way you came in. This method is good for targets that cannot be flown over. The loft is not as accurate as other methods and can result in fairly significant errors. Harm targeting mode does not actually use radar, but displays an image fed to it by the harm missile itself. This makes it completely passive. It intercepts ground-based radar signals and presents a display of radar-emitting sources. It's designed specifically to support the launch of HARM, or high-speed anti-radiation missile, against those sites detected. The contact must be ground-based, it must have a radar which is turned on, and it must not be masked by the terrain. Harm mode is used to detect and destroy enemy radar sites, including those associated with AAA and SAM. The harm display will only function if a harm missile is loaded on the aircraft. The harm display is located in the left DDI. Select harm mode with the U key. In the upper left corner of the harm display is the station location of the currently selected harm. The symbol located in the center of the azimuth and elevation grid is representative of the nose of your aircraft, meaning the display is not top-down but in bore sight, providing display in elevation versus azimuth rather than elevation versus range. As ground-based radar signals are received, they are displayed in the DDI according to the type of signal emitted. The symbology is identical to that of the radar warning receiver. An A represents AAA, S represents SAMs, etc. Select a target by cycling through the contacts with Control /. Once you receive an in-range cue, launch the harm using your trigger, return, or enter key. Electro-optical weapons are guided to their target by TV image. You will use this image to find, designate, and launch your weapon. These weapons are classified as standoff since they can be targeted and launched from greater distances than bombs. The standoff weapons available in F-18 Hornet are the AGM-65E Maverick and the AGM-62 Walleye. Both weapons feature attack ranges in excess of 10 miles, depending on altitude. While these weapons take less pilot skill to employ, there is a lot of time spent head down in the cockpit targeting. The autopilot is therefore critical to the employment of both weapons. We'll cover these weapons as individual topics. The FLIR, or forward-looking infrared, is not a weapon, but an electro-optical device with handoff capability. The FLIR can be used to designate targets for weapons, including iron bombs. In the next few topics, we'll look at the specific electro-optical weapons along with the FLIR and how it can be used to designate remote targets for other weapons. The AGM-65E Maverick is a TV-guided standoff weapon with a range of approximately 12 miles. Engage autopilot and become familiar with using the electro-optical system. Press O to activate the electro-optical display in the left DDI and to cycle through available loaded electro-optical weapons. Your weapon select status is displayed in the upper left corner along with the station indicator. Centered in the display are the launch constraint circle and gimbal angle limits. These symbols are part of the Maverick video. Use Control in conjunction with the arrow keys to slew the seeker head until it is centered at the base of the target. Zoom in is required using Control plus or Control minus. Designate the target by pressing the return or enter key. The X will change to a solid square indicating you have a lock on your target. The HUD will display the TD diamond on your selected aim point. When in range for the Maverick, an in-range cue appears in the HUD. Release the weapon with the trigger, return, or enter key. Once fired, the Maverick needs no more attention and you can immediately leave the target area. The AGM-62 Walleye is essentially an unpowered version of the Maverick with a larger payload and, depending on the launch altitude, longer range. It is, however, slower and more susceptible to drift than the Maverick. Engage autopilot and, using the O key, cycle through EO weapons until the Walleye display is active on the left DDI. The video display for the Walleye differs somewhat from the Maverick. The display provides two sets of double horizontal and vertical raster lines which form a square gate at the center. Zoom is required using the Control plus or Control minus keys. The target gate is represented in the HUD by a stationary air-to-ground reticle. Maneuver your aircraft to position the reticle on the target. Press the trigger, return, or enter key to designate. The target gate will then snap to your aim point. If you have a good lock, the gate will gimbal to maintain the target in the display's center. After designation, the TD diamond will appear on the selected aim point or target in the HUD. An in-range cue appears in your HUD when within launch parameters. Release the weapon with the trigger, return, or enter key. Forward-looking infrared, or FLIR, was designed to allow the pilot to see at night or in bad weather. FLIR sees in the infrared range of the light spectrum. Cooler objects will appear darker than warm ones. The FLIR pod is available by pressing O and cycling to FLIR. As with all EO devices, FLIR is displayed on the left DDI. Again, autopilot will be helpful to you while you become familiar with the operation of the FLIR system. The center of your view is marked by the field of view reticle. To the left of your field of view reticle is the elevation readout providing you with the gimbal angle above or below the horizon. Negative values represent angles below the horizon. Barometric altitude is displayed in the lower right. Use Control with the arrow keys to slew the FLIR's optics to the target. Zoom is required using Control plus and Control minus. A pipper, helpful as a steering aid, is simultaneously displayed in the HUD and tracks in relation to the field of view reticle. Maneuver to position the center of the field of view reticle on the target. Designate the target using the trigger, return, or enter key. If you have a positive lock, a symbol similar to the TDC cursor will appear on your target in the FLIR display. Likewise, the target designator diamond is displayed in the HUD over the target. You may now hand off the designated target to CCIP weapons by simply selecting a bomb with the right bracket key. Auto-release symbology will be displayed in the HUD just as if you had pickled the target conventionally. The radar warning receiver, or RWR, plays a critical part in your survival in the air-to-ground environment. You must constantly be aware of what's going on around you. If possible, interrogate contacts using IFF. If you do not receive positive IFF confirmation, take appropriate action using the HARM system.
much.